I'd find communication is changing behavior. And number two, I'm very clear about what behavior I want to change. So you asked the question of like, why are you such a clear communicator or quote good communicator? It's like, number one, I'd find communication is changing behavior. And number two, I'm very clear about what behavior I want to change. And I only think in service of that goal. And that's it.
So said another way,
Yeah.
what you say in a YouTube video gets people to change. And that ties it back to they're conscious of this. That ties it back to your content versus I might listen to somebody else and it sounds really smart, but it's not actionable and doesn't change my life as much as a Hermosi clip. And that's what you would attribute to your communication, not some kind of stylistic ways of talking or some rhetorical device.
Maybe there are some. I would say they're not super conscious. I would say some rhetorical devices might be like alliteration. I know, like if I can say something that alliterates it, like people tend to like it.
Give
better.
me an example.
Shoot, I don't know. We just look at my Twitter, you know, but like if I say, you know, if you repeat words in a sentence, or if you have, you know, flips of like, it's more sentence structure. It will increase the likelihood that they listen to my instructions again in the future.
And then somehow their brains are linking it. So the dopamines are getting released ahead of the time that you're even talking, because the last 3 times that they've listened to you.
History of reinforcement.
Yeah, it's history of reinforcement. So it's not really what you're saying. It's the history of providing value-added advice to people that basically makes people just encapsulated with what you're saying.
And I'll give you an example. So I had this happen to me. So I'm not a huge I don't consume very much. We talked about this earlier, but I saw this clip by Huberman, and I don't listen to much biohacking stuff in general. But he said this thing. It was like how to get rid of hiccups if you have hiccups. And I watched it and I was like, huh, I'll remember that. And then I had hiccups like a month later. And then I remembered the clip, and then I did the thing in the clip and my hiccups went away. And in that instance, in that moment, he gained influence over me. I am more likely to listen to something else he says in the future to solve a future problem that he prescribes a solution for. It will increase the likelihood that they listen to my instructions again in the future.
And then somehow their brains are linking it. So the dopamines are getting released ahead of the time that you're even talking, because the last 3 times that they've listened to you.
History of reinforcement.
Yeah, it's history of reinforcement. So it's not really what you're saying. It's the history of providing value-added advice to people that basically makes people just encapsulated with what you're saying.
And I'll give you an example. So I had this happen to me. So I'm not a huge I don't consume very much. We talked about this earlier, but I saw this clip by Huberman. And I don't listen to much biohacking stuff in general. But he said this thing. It was like how to get rid of hiccups if you have hiccups. And I watched it and I was like, huh, I'll remember that. And then I had hiccups like a month later. And then I remembered the clip, and then I did the thing in the clip and my hiccups went away. And in that instance, in that moment, he gained influence over me. I am more likely to listen to something else he says in the future to solve a future problem that he prescribes a solution for. He's great. He's a G. I love his ex.
We're both big Elon fans. I sent you some clips on Elon specific portions. I've been going down this rabbit hole of how he manages his companies. How do you explain how a human being could manage 7 companies and now also run Doge and all the other things that he's doing?
I can't. You know, I mean, I think he obviously gets tremendous return on his time and operates with huge operational leverage. There's, you know, the thing is I have very little insight besides the clips that I see, you know, on Instagram is like, what is reality? Yeah. So, I mean, decision-making is probably some of the highest leverage thing that you can do. And so it's like, it's probably just what is the minimum amount of context that is required to make an accurate decision. And then he just is a decision-making machine, and is able to spot problems, pattern recognize, and quickly correct course on the most important things across that many companies.
Now you go and I'll be on a yacht.
Sure.
He is in the arena battling the bulls with everybody. And I think that really has huge effect on the culture, huge effect on recruiting. I think the more interesting question is, how did he start SpaceX before he was Elon? Kind of like, how did you start with $100 million offers?
Yeah.
You know, I have theories on that, but today he just keeps on leveraging his existing, which is recruiting and brand, and those are interlinked. And when you go to these highly technical problems, there's actually the most finite resource is actually not money, it's actually engineering.
Talent,
the top engineers in the world,
the
10x or the 100x engineers, and he has a large market share of that. Sometimes they even transfer companies. That's what I've been able to gather so far.
I love that. And so I took 2 things, then 1 add-on. So the doing, you know, helping them solve in these 5 or 15 minute meetings, whatever the one problem is, also force functions them to prioritize. So if you're going to bring one
to
thing
know
to Elon,
what their one problem
yeah,
is.
exactly. It's like just that alone probably generates a huge alpha for the business.
I'm like the one-eyed man in the land of the blind. I've had probably dozens of conversations, so I've seen a couple of aspects.
Yeah.
One is he fundamentally redefines what the CEO title. He even had this whole tweet how CEO is a made-up title. So when you apply for Delaware C Corp, there is no CEO title. So it is fundamentally made up.
Yeah.
So he doesn't do things like operations and things like that. There's probably for everything that he doesn't do 100 different things. So first of all, he fundamentally focuses on a couple things. What he focuses on is really his brand. His brand allows him to recruit the very top engineers in the world. I interviewed Jamie Gull, who previously worked at SpaceX, and one of the things that he said that there was a lot of people at SpaceX that were lifers because they couldn't find a bigger mission.
Yeah.
You know, they believed, and I think appropriately so, that human beings going to Mars was important for the species to survive. So one aspect is he uses brand in recruiting.
And also, if I want something to occur, asking like, even as simply like if you have an employee who messes something up, right? The natural instinct is you want to punish them in some way because you're just upset that they messed something up, right? It's a very human thing to do. But if I think to myself, what would I like to have happen? What do I want to occur? It actually fundamentally changes what I'm going to say to this person. I'll give you a perfect example of this. So, gosh, I want to say 6-7 years ago, I launched a company called Done For You Meals. So we had our distribution of gyms, and I thought, man, we could do Done For You Meals. I partnered with a white labeling, company that did it, and then we launched it, right? So this was a huge launch for me at the time, and we had 4,000 gyms that signed up to attend the launch. So 4,000 locations saying that they wanted to distribute meals is a lot of locations. Like that would have been really big. And so the day before the launch was supposed to happen, my secretary sent out the text at noon saying we're live 24 hours early. And so now all 4,000 of these people are like, I thought it was tomorrow, but people are like, well, they said they're live. And so they start hopping on this Zoom after like probably $1 million in advertising and months of prep for this launch. And so she's like, well, what do I do? And I was like, you need to hop on the Zoom and you need to have a sign that says, we messed up. And so people hopped on and we're like, God damn it, hopped on. Like just over and over again. And she just stood there with the sign telling people, my bad, it was there tomorrow. And so after that, onslaught, she, I met up with her and she said, don't worry, I'm packing my stuff. Like, I'm sorry, I'll get out. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, well, I'm assuming you're firing me. And I was like, well, does this increase or decrease the likelihood that you're going to make a mistake again in the future? And she was like, well, I mean, I'll never make this mistake again. I was like, right, so you're technically more valuable to me now than you were before. And so I was like, I just paid $1 million for you to learn this lesson and never make the mistake again. I was like, I will always trust you with my launches because you will never have this happen again. Because it's mostly noise. People just like, quite literally, people just making noise with their face and just saying words that they've never defined and not telling people to do anything and mostly entertaining when they think they're educating. And so it serves as a wonderful filter for consuming information. But in terms of dispensing, the word concision becomes so much tighter that the quote value per word or value per second goes way up because you actually can do something with this.
One of the topics you talk a lot about is doing things that other people may not approve of.
Yeah.
And now with your social network, you're around many billionaires and you get to observe them. What is something that billionaires do that would surprise the majority of the population?
I don't know if it would surprise them, but I guess it would probably be jarring for many of them in close quarters, is they would probably be surprised by the level of agency that billionaires will demonstrate. Like almost all of them are just, they come up to their own conclusions on their own. It takes effort to think.
You almost need to create a bunker of like-minded people that believe in what you believe, and you could basically like stress test each other's theories, or have somebody stress test them and be like, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" Oftentimes we have the same thing. We're merging media and limited partners. Literally trillions of dollars of people have gone on this podcast. We're at 5 trillion now.
That's amazing.
And now it's become a little bit more consensus, but in the beginning people are like, why are you running a media business? Why not an asset manager? We're like, this is the right to win. This is a competitive advantage. So it's even the most obvious things, if they're non-consensus, it could seem like you're an idiot.
Yeah, you're like, well, explain to me how this decreases the likelihood that I get more deals.
Yeah.
Like,
Or explain, here's my logic, poke holes in the logic. Forget about what everybody else is doing, but here's kind of my business plan.
Yeah.
And sure, like I want to actually improve. Where are the big holes here?
Yeah.
What
What assumptions? Yeah. What assumptions am I basing this on that you think are wrong? Because there's obviously going to be some assumptions that we're not going to prove, and so some of them are going to be wrong or could be wrong. Die. Yeah. And so like you didn't get any of the. So there is this sweet spot, and obviously it's difficult to get to balance that, because most people don't even know how to like save. Right? Yeah. So it's like, so this is only for high achievers that I'm talking about here. But I've had so many doors in my life, and so functionally, what I think organic content did for me was it allowed me to do that at scale. Mm-hmm. So as I prior to making content, like Layla existed in my life to be the yang to my like yin of give first. So she was like, you just like, Alex would be nonstop, just like, let's do this dinner. I'm gonna hop on the phone for 3 hours and help this guy do this thing. I'm gonna help this guy with this, whatever the things were that I was trying to help somebody with. I would just always do that, and she would be the one who was kind of like, and that's why I think Layla and I have been such a good partnership. And she'd be like, I think you're about to get taken advantage of here. I think they're just using you at this point. Yeah. And so it was right that she would kind of pull me back. But as soon as I was able to transition into making content, that allowed me to. It's the same energy for me.
There was status, and then you were reinforced.
Yeah, and so functionally, that is all I'm trying to do within a very narrow audience of business owners, which is if I can give, and this is where it separates from, I read this book, I thought it was good, and I read Hormozzi's book, and it made me this much money. Mm-hmm. That is what I'm going for. And if I do that, like there's, I think it was Boardwalk Empire. He says, nothing says sorry like money, or nothing makes friends like money. I can't remember what the saying was, but I remember hearing that and being like, that's cute. I will remember that. And so it's like, well, what do most business owners want? Well, most of them want to grow. Most of them want to make more money. Well, why don't I just give them instructions that I think will increase the likelihood that occurs? Now, when I do that over a massive population, there's going to be a good percentage of people that will be better off from directly following that thing. Like I think Martha Stewart was one of the most influential, or was the first female billionaire, self-made, because of the nature of her content. So the reason that entertainers have significantly less influence than educators is because entertainers never give you anything to do.
Let's say you needed to start a YouTube without your face. You had AI replace your face with just some random person nobody knew. How long would it take for you to reestablish and to get rabid fans for that?
I think it would still work. And it was so weird you asked this. I was thinking about this week. And I have proof that it's not because of my dashing good looks and my high sense of fashion. It's because like when I started my first book that I wrote, $100 Million Offers, I had virtually no following. Mm-hmm. I had enough following to make a post to say, I wrote a book, go check it out. But then that book every single month sold more and more copies than the month before. And that was before I had an audience or before I was making content. And so it was the quality of the ideas. It was a book. They didn't even see me. It was just text, right? Mm-hmm. The quality of the ideas, the quality of the communication is what people were attracted to.
People read it, applied it, got results, told their friends.
Yes. And to this day, offers still continue to sell more and more.
And the brand was actually the book. It wasn't even human. You are one of the best communicators I've ever come across in real life or on YouTube or podcasts, etc. How have you become such a good communicator? Break that down for us.
I'd love that the response starts with
Filler.
Yeah, right, yeah. It comes down to everything that we've talked about, which is you have to define the terms. That's really it. Like if we think about communication, like what is communication, right? So what is the objective of communication? So I would ask that.
To communicate.
Yeah. What do you think? So what is the output of communication? If I were to ask you.
It's interesting because when you say that, my head goes to two different things. Okay. One is sounding really smart.
Sure. Yeah.
And very charismatic. Another one is transferring knowledge.
Okay. So for me, the purpose of communication is solely to change behavior. That's it. It's the only reason that we communicate anything to somebody else is to change their behavior.